Hello, welcome to the architecture studio where I spend most of my miserable days. So, on human nature, I hope you can hear me. What do I think? I think that people. So, I agree mostly with Hobbes to say that the human nature is egotistical, that we all um, do things in order to survive, it's basically a selfish nature, but I don't think it should be classified into good or bad because in order to be able to qualify things with these adjectives, we have to exist first, right? So our nature comes before these opinions. So I feel like the characteristics that we do have inherently are what they are, and then we have, post to that, classify them, as I would say that the things that are actually inherent we classify as bad. I do think that the human being has a very dark sense, like inside of us. Although I know, yeah, you wouldn't say that babies are bad, but I feel like through living life and through experiences, you can get very corrupted. And I feel like most of the quote unquote bad things that we consider sometimes overtake the good things that we can have. So it's like what we were discussing in class today about, avoiding death and avoiding pain. That is your primary thing, and it's what drives everything. I even think that when you're helping someone, even if you're not getting anything out of it, you're getting the like good deed thing. Even soldiers that go to war and die for other people, I still feel like they are feeling like heroes and that their legacy is living on. And even, like we were talking about empathy, but I feel like what I was gonna say before the class ended was that, and I didn't have a chance to say it, was that empathy. So we were discussing that empathy exists because we don't just preserve ourselves as a one entity, like one being. We want to preserve the group because we are essentially social, and because without the group you cannot survive. So whatever your group is, if it's your immediate family, your friends, Northeastern students, people that speak Spanish, or the whole species versus another species, you protect the group. But I feel like then empathy is subordinated to that survival instinct, that selfishness, because there are there are situations in which you can be put that then override that empathy. So for example, I've been wanting to mention this in class, but I feel like there are many psychological experiments that prove how shitty people are, really. So for example, the Stanford prison experiment and the Milgram experiment are both experiments that show actually how, Maru, how you say sanguinario in English?
Blood related?
No, like you're sanguinary. Is that a word in English?
I don't know.
Whatever. The point is that these experiments, so for example, in the Stanford prison experiment, you're giving a role. It was trying to prove basically if prisoners and guards behave the way that they do because their nature has, like their individual nature has led them to pursue that life of being a guard or being a prisoner. So for example, if the guard is a sadist, is it because the person is a sadist and they want that job in order to be able to exert like pain on prisoners, or is it the job that makes a person like that? So there were psychology students, none of them were in the crime life or in the prison guard life, and the guards ended up being really mean to the prisoners, like completely disregarding the fact that they were their classmates and that they hadn't actually committed any crimes. It got pretty bad, and a bunch of people visited the experiment, and like 50 people had like observed this and made annotations, and only one person said, "This is wrong. You need to stop this." I mean, I don't know. I just, you were giving a position of authority and you exert it however you want. I feel like people are very restricted by the social context and consequences and the law, even if it's the social law. If we didn't have these constructs, I feel like people would be doing even worse things all the time. And then, for example, in the Milgram experiment, this is an experiment in which a person that is perceived as having authority, like for example, a white lab coder from a prestigious company or a doctor or something, tells you you have this thing and it's connected to a person in another room that has an equipment that is you can choose to shock them, and you can choose to put up the voltage and to shock them even more. And most people that start putting up the voltage will go all the way, and they can hear the person screaming in the other room, but they'll still do it because somebody is validating their action and telling them that it's okay. So the reason why we don't like hurt other people sometimes is because I am going to be shunned away from society. I am going to be discarded. I am going to be put aside because I hurt some like a member of the society that I am in. So because I want to still be part of the society and survive, I am not going to go in detriment of the group, and that's why we don't hurt people. But in this experiment, you were given an excuse basically to hurt people, and guess what? People did it. So I think it's shitty. But part of the experiment, see, so you couldn't see the person that you were hurting, but you could hear them. If the person wasn't covered and you could see them, then you wouldn't do it. So most people wouldn't do it. So it's kind of weird. I do think obviously like there's some empathy that you can't just completely shut off, but the fact that in so many circumstances it can be overridden, and the context just gives you a lot. It's like, okay, we feel empathy as like the minions of life. We are just normal people, but people that are in positions of power often are just weighing what their own gains are. They're not really thinking about every individual person that's gonna get hurt based on their actions. It's just gonna, if they have to win the war of the whatever, they'll send 5,000 soldiers and they're with their lives. Who knows what's gonna happen to them, So yeah, I feel like actually like civilization corrupts us a lot because of all the things that we have to endure through life, and so we end up being very damaged. But at the same time, it also puts us a control. It's like it prevents us from doing horrible things, and which is kind of like I think what religion also wanted to do with the whole moralistic sermons and whatever. But that's another topic. So yeah, I do agree with Hobbes a little bit in that. I don't know. Human beings are selfish. That's what I think we are at the end of the day. Even anything we do, we consider it, I did a good deed, so I feel good with myself. A lot of things that we do is because we want to feel good with ourselves. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, any emotional reason, like I don't like the emotional reasoning. We've been discussing in class, like, arguing through reason or emotions and whatsoever. The fact that people don't want to admit to themselves that they are a bunch of reactions, just a bunch of chemicals and molecules reacting in a certain way, and that there's a certain outcome, certain nature to those reactions. People don't want to admit that they're just machines, that they're just flesh and bones, and they also don't want to admit that they're not, that they don't have free will, or that they're not inherently good. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it's all like. The fact that we don't think that way is because we're like protecting our little minds from feeling that overwhelming sensation of the discovery of how life actually is, and that it's not how we all suspect, and that the truth is not that comfortable, I guess. So yeah, I guess that's my take on it.